Hi everyone. Today's topic is reflex. Discuss it under the following headings: introduction, classification of reflex, properties of reflex, spinal cord reflexes like stretch reflex, inverse stretch reflex, and the withdrawal reflexes, and then finally the pathological reflexes. Reflex. So reflex, it is an involuntary response to a threshold peripheral nervous stimulation. So for example, here you can see, so here when the hand is placed on a hot surface or the hot object, frying pan, here you can see it is immediately withdrawn. So by this reflex, the hand is being saved from being burnt, right? So this is a protective mechanism. So it is an involuntary response to a threshold peripheral stimulation. So reflex is an involuntary response resulting from the stimulation of a receptor organ by threshold peripheral stimulation. So in other words, you can say that it is a mechanism by which sensory impulse is automatically converted into a motor effect. So through the involvement of the central nervous system, that is the brain or the spinal cord. So it is a very important protective mechanism, so which protects our body from any irreparable or irreversible damage. And reflexes permit the body to make rapid adjustments to the homeostatic imbalances. So it also react to the internal changes, and it do the immediate it activate the immediate compensatory mechanisms. And it is used, the reflexes are used to diagnose the disorders of the nervous system and to locate the site of injury. How that is possible? So the reflexes happen, so when there is a stimuli is given, so there is an afferent limb which carries the sensory system to the center, the integration part, and from the integration part it goes to the efferent organ through the efferent efferent nerve fibers, it reaches the end organ. So it responds. So to diagnose a disorder, what we do is we give stimulation and we look for the response. So if we don't get any proper response, then we can diagnose a disorder according to the stimulation which we are giving and where we are giving. So this is the importance of knowing the reflex. So the features of the reflex action. So as we have discussed, it is an involuntary response and does not involve the intervention of the consciousness. It is not necessary to do the reflex action consciously. So it is an involuntary action. It can bypass the involvement of the cerebrum. So through the spinal cord, it can bypass. That's why we get the immediate response. Before we think that our hand is getting hot, we will take away from the hot object. So we withdraw our hand from the hot object. That is because because of the spinal cord reflex. So without reaching before reaching, it's not without reaching, but before reaching the cerebrum itself, through the spinal cord, we receive the reflex. So that's why the reflex is very fast. So that is without the consciousness. It is inborn and not acquired except the conditioned reflexes. So which are learned. We know that which are conditioned reflexes and the unconditioned reflexes. We have learned that. So almost all the reflexes are inborn and they are not acquired other than the conditioned reflexes. So it is mediated at the subcortical level, that is the spinal cord and the brainstem. So they are mediated at the subcortical level. Reflex arc, it is the pathway for a reflex activity. It is a basic unit of integrated reflex activity which forms the functional unit of the nervous system. So it comprises of receptor organ. The receptor is a modified nerve endings, so which receives the stimulus, and then afferent neuron or the sensory nerve fiber, so that carries the sensory input from the receptor and it carries it to the center. So the afferent neuron, they enter the center through the dorsal roots or the cranial nerves. So together, receptor and the afferent neuron together is called as the afferent limb. And then the center, integrating center, it is a part of the central nervous system, that is the spinal cord or the brain, that is the brain stem. So where the afferent limb ends, or they either synapses directly with the efferent motor neuron. So or also they can have connection with the efferent neuron through the interneurons. So either they can directly connect with the afferent limb can directly connect with the efferent limb, or they can connect with the afferent limb can connect with the efferent limb through the interneurons. So this is the center, and moving on to the efferent limb. So efferent limb consists of efferent neuron and the effector organ. Efferent neuron or the motor nerve fiber. So this efferent part, efferent nerve fiber that transmits the motor impulses, that is from the center to the effector organ. You can see that is from the center to the effector organ. So the activity in the reflex arc can be modified as there are multiple inputs converge on the efferent fibers. So these motor fibers have many inputs from various systems from the center. So this multiple inputs can affect the outcome. And then finally the effector organ. So this can be a muscle or a gland, so anything. So this is the effector organ. So this shows the response to the stimuli. And efferent neuron and effector organ together called as the efferent limb. And then here is the pictorial representation of a reflex arc. So here you can see the receptor. So this is where the uh, stimuli is applied. So here you can see a nail. So the pain receptors gets activated. So here we get the receptor potential. So receptor gets activated and through the afferent nerve fiber. So here you can see the axons, so that carry the impulses from the receptor to the center. Here is the center. Here the center is the spinal cord. So here you can see the interneuron. So it's not directly connecting. There is an interneuron. So here it is the integrating part, integrating the sensory and the motor fiber. So the integrating center. So this is in the central nervous system, and it passes the signal to the motor nerve fibers. So here you can see the motor nerve fiber. So the axon that carry impulses from the center to the end organ. So here it is the effector organ. So the effector organ can be a muscle or a gland. So that responds to the motor nerve impulses. So all the reflexes will have these components. So whenever you come across a reflex hereafter, you have to know that there are 5 components in it, and you have to know all these components. Let us see how the reflex arc work. What are the activities that happens in the reflex arc at various junctions? So in the receptor, that is the sense organ, there happens the receptor potential or the generator potential. In the afferent neuron, there happens the action potential. In the synapse, you can have either excitative postsynaptic potential or the inhibitive postsynaptic potential. And then in the efferent neuron, you can see the action potential. And finally, in the effector organ, here it is neuromuscular junction, we can see the end plate potential. And the fibers can, no, muscle fibers can come up with the action potential. So this is how the reflex arc operate. So at various levels, it will have various potential. These are the different potentials that are obtained in the reflex arc, in short. Classification of the reflexes, depending on the number of the synapses, reflexes can be classified. So monosynaptic reflex, so here it contains only one synapse. So example is the stretch reflex, that is the biceps, triceps, or the knee jerk. So afferent neuron connecting directly with the efferent neuron with only one synapse in the reflex pathway. So this is monosynaptic reflex. Disynaptic reflex, they have 2 synapses. So presence of one interneuron between the afferent and the efferent neuron. So here the example is the inverse stretch reflex. And then finally the polysynaptic reflexes. So they are characterized by more than one interneuron. So more than one interneuron placed between the afferent and the efferent nerve fibers. So the examples of the withdrawal reflexes, and then cross flexor and cross extensor reflexes. So these are the different types of reflexes depending upon the number of synapses. So depending on the site of integration, cortical reflexes. In these reflexes, the center is located in the cerebral cortex. Cerebellar reflexes, they have the center in the cerebellum. Midbrain reflexes, the center of the reflex arc is in the midbrain. Medullary reflexes, here the center is located in the medulla oblongata. And then spinal reflexes, so they have the center in the spinal cord. So depending on the segments involved, the spinal reflexes, so that can be further divided into three types. There are segmental reflexes. They are where the efferent neuron begins in the same segment of the spinal cord where the afferent neuron ends. And then intersegmental reflex. So in this, the efferent neuron in a segment of a spinal cord, and the efferent neuron begins in some other segment of the spinal cord. And then finally the suprasegmental reflex. So here the center lies above the spinal cord. This is the suprasegmental reflex. So coming to the physiological classification of the reflex. So flexor responses in the extensor reflexes. So flexor reflexes, so that occurs in the response to the painful stimuli or the nociceptive stimuli or the nauseous unpleasant stimuli. So these are characterized by the flexion of the joint. So examples are withdrawal reflex in the polysynaptic reflex. Here the flexor muscle contraction happens and the inhibition of the extensor muscles happen. Moving on to the extensor reflexes. So example is the stretch reflex. So these are the basis of muscle tone and posture of the body. So they are also called as the anti-gravity reflexes. Conditioned and the unconditioned reflexes. So we can also say as inborn versus the acquired. So the unconditioned reflexes, so they are present from the birth and they don't require any training. So for example, when you take salivation, when something is kept in his mouth, and then acquired, so they all develop after the birth. So we have to condition the subject to acquire a reflex. So they have to be properly learned or trained. So for example, reflex salivation by sight, smell, thought, hearing. So it is all depend upon how we train the person. Moving on to the clinical classification. So the clinically reflexes are classified into superficial, that is the corneal reflex, conjunctival, abdominal, and the plantar reflexes. And then deep reflexes, they are jerks like bicep, triceps, knee jerk, and the ankle jerk. And then visceral reflexes, they are gastrointestinal reflexes. Hope you remember all the gastrointestinal reflexes. And then cardiovascular reflexes and the respiratory reflexes. These are all the visceral reflexes. And then pathological reflexes. At the end of the class, we will discuss the pathological reflexes like Babinski sign and the Proners. Properties of reflexes. So let us discuss. So all these reflexes that we have discussed have properties. So the first one is the adequate stimulus. A reflex response is obtained only when there is a precise stimulus for a given reflex activity. So for example, uh, the scratching of a dog. The dog scratches only when there are multiple linear touch stimuli. So if these multiple linear touch stimuli, if they are widely separated, then the reflex activity will not get stimulated. So adequate stimulus is must to initiate a response. So it is a time interval between the application of the stimulus and the starting of the response. So there can be a delay in the response after the application of the stimuli. So this can be because of the synaptic delay and also the time required for the passage of the impulses along the nerve fibers. So it all plays a role. So the delay is minimum in the monosynaptic reflex because it has only one synapse. So it is in the stretch reflex. So the delay is minimal and we get the response as early as we can. So the quickest response we can get is from the monosynaptic reflex. So there can be central delay. So that is total latent period. So minus peripheral delay. So this central delay that indicates the number of interneurons that are present in the pathway. So the polysynaptic reflexes have the maximum delay. So these delay they can be due to the peripheral type. So the time taken for the impulse to travel over the afferent and the efferent limb. So without the involvement of the center, so that is called as the peripheral delay. So delay over the peripheries, and then there is central delay. So the time taken for transmission of the impulses across the central synapse. So the central synapse plays an important role. The central delay is equal to the total latent period, time taken to respond after the stimuli is applied, minus the peripheral delay. So the central delay it indicates the number of interneurons in the pathway. Wave conduction. So this is during any reflex activity, the reflexes act in only one way. So the impulses are transmitted in only one direction through the reflex arc. So this is as per the Bell-Legendre law. So remember this law. So impulses that passes from the receptors to the center and then from the center to the receptors. Always towards the center is the afferent nerve fiber, and always away from the center is the efferent nerve fiber. So this is the law of forward conduction. And then summation. So there are two types. So summation, we have temporal and the spatial summation. So they play an important role in the facilitation of responses during the reflex activity. So let us see what is spatial and the temporal summation. Spatial summation, so that is when the efferent fibers, so supplying muscle is stimulated with the subthreshold stimuli, and the reflex that cannot elicit a response. But when more than one subthreshold stimuli is applied from different origin, so simultaneously, so that is very important, then the response can be obtained. So this is the spatial summation. Here it is temporal summation. Here you can see that so here also when there is subthreshold stimuli is applied, it will not respond, but when the subthreshold stimuli is repeatedly applied in quick succession, that is very important. In quick succession, response can be obtained. So in short, spatial summation is, so when the impulses from more number of, that is more number of postsynaptic terminals comes in simultaneously, it will elicit a response. Temporal summation is repeated stimuli at very short intervals can elicit a response. Occlusion, it is a phenomenon by which stimulation of two neighboring nerve fibers simultaneously, so that evokes lesser response than if it is stimulated separately, it would have given a better response. So stimulating simultaneously that gives the lesser response, but stimulating separately will give better response. This is because you can see that it is due to the overlapping of the nerve fibers. So during the distribution, right? Here you can see this is the occlusion zone. So here the fibers are supplied by both the A and the B branch. So because of the overlapping, it will give only a lesser response than being separately give. Subminimal fringe, it is a phenomenon by which simultaneous stimulation of two nerves, so with subthreshold stimuli, subthreshold stimuli produces a greater response than the sum of the two responses, which when the each nerve is separately stimulated with subthreshold stimuli. So this seems to be giving the opposite effect of the occlusion phenomena, The only difference is here it is subminimal or the subthreshold stimuli. So the reason for this is when the two groups of neurons are stimulated at the same time, some one might be having subthreshold or subminimal stimuli and another might be having adequate or the threshold stimuli. So if both are stimulated at the same time, one is subminimal and one other one is having adequate, so it will, when both are stimulated at the same time, then that can respond better than stimulated separate. Recruitment, when an excitatory nerve is stimulated with a stimulus of constant strength for a long time, so progressively that increases the response of the motor nerve that is activated. So this is due to the progressive increase in the number of motor neurons activity, that is the recruitment. So it can recruit more neurons to get activated. So the response will be better if there is a constant stimuli. But there is a limit when the plateau is reached. So if all the neurons gets activated, so that is a limit and it will not give so increase the response. Irradiation, strong stimulus produces wider response due to the collateral it has. So increase in reflex response resulting from increasing the strength of the stimulus. When the stimulus is too strong, the spread of the excitatory impulses up and down the spinal cord to a greater number of neurons so that the additional group of muscles take part in reflex response causing the irradiation. So the response what we get is that we get two other group muscles also, other group of muscles also. So because of the spread of the impulses. So the reason being stronger stimuli activates more synapses. So the transmission of impulse through large number of collaterals of afferent end their interneurons. So it activates more synapses. Final common pathway. So the efferent pathway that is formed by the alpha motor neuron. So it is a motor nerve fiber, efferent fiber. So that supply the extrafusal muscle fibers. So all the neuronal influences affecting the muscular contraction. So ultimately they funnel through the motor neurons. So that is called as the common final pathway. So there are numerous inputs that converge and determine the activity in the final common pathway. If when alpha motor neuron is stimulated, so the muscle fibers they contract. If the alpha motor neuron is not stimulated, then the skeletal muscle fibers they relax. So the alpha motor neurons forming the final common pathway, they serve as a integrating center and also the efferent pathway. So it is when a reflex is elicited repeatedly at proper intervals, the response becomes progressively higher for the first few occasions. So this is due to the facilitation occurring at the synaptic level. So this is called as the facilitation inhibition during a reflex activity. Impulses through the sensory fibers from a protagonist muscle inhibit the action of antagonist muscle. For example, when the flexor muscle of a joint is stimulated, the extensor muscles are inhibited. The inhibitory activity exerted by interneurons is responsible for such a reciprocal inhibitory effect. After discharge, when a reflex action is elicited continuously for some time and the stimulation is stopped, the reflex response may continue for some time even after stopping the stimulation. So this is called as the after discharge. So the reflex response continues continues even after the cessation of the stimulation. So this is due to the discharge of the center. So the center continues to discharge even after stopping the stimulus. So strong stimulus causes prolonged flexion due to prolonged repeated firing of the motor neurons by impulses arriving from the reverberating circuits. So this reverberating circuits are responsible for the prolonged response. Motor neurons are stimulated through multiple internuclear pathways, and some of them take longer time to reach the motor neurons again. Fatigue or habituation: when a particular reflex is elicited repeatedly at frequent intervals, the response is reduced progressively and then disappears altogether. So the first site of fatigue is synapse, and then the motor endings, and lastly the muscle. Rebound phenomenon. So reflex activity can be inhibited for some time by some method. So however, once the inhibitory effect is over, the reflex activity that reappears and becomes more powerful. So this is called as the rebound phenomenon. So during elicitation of a reflex, if an inhibitory stimulus is applied to the afferent nerve, so augmentation of the reflex response occurs when the inhibitory stimulus is withdrawn. So when it reappears, it appears as more powerful response. Fractionation. So the force of muscle contraction is much higher when it is stimulated directly to the motor nerve. So then it is stimulated reflexly through the sensory nerve. So this is due to the phenomenon of occlusion of motor neurons when sensory nerve is stimulated. Because of the occlusion, the number of motor neurons stimulated is lesser. So, stimulating the motor neuron directly can give higher response. Sensitization, when an injurious stimulus is repeatedly applied, there occurs the intensification of response. It is known as sensitization. Sensitization, in fact, is a presynaptic facilitation of an impulse. So we can compare the habituation and the sensitization. If somebody is touching you repeatedly, after some time you will not feel that touch. So that is habituation. But when somebody pricks you with a sharp object, then we will suddenly react, right? Suddenly you are react and you will be having much higher response. So this is sensitization. So habituation, by touching, you will not, at last if you keep on touching at a regular interval, then you will lose the response. Here when you have an um, nauseous stimuli, so you will have a greater response. So this is the difference between the habituation and the sensitization. So this diagram shows us how the reflex works. So here is the receptor in the muscle spindle. So stretching, so that stimulates the receptor, and it is taken to the center by the afferent nerve fiber. So here you can see there are it is one is going to the brain, the another one is to the interneuron, and another one is directly giving supply to the, so this is giving going to the efferent neuron. So within the integrating center, so sensory neuron activates the motor neuron. So here it is excitatory response, here it is inhibitory response, right? Through the interneuron gives the inhibitory response. So here you can see the efferent fiber. So stretching causes immediate contraction. So and also here you can see, so the another motor neuron to the antagonist muscle is inhibit. So the antagonist muscle relaxes and the protagonist muscle contracts. Muscle sensors. So signals from the muscle sensors are for intrinsic muscle control, to control the muscle. These muscle sensors, they operate at a subconscious level. So some of the muscle sensors are the muscle spindles. They detect the muscle fiber length. Golgi tendon organ, they detect the muscle tension. Pacinian corpuscle, they detect the vibration. Free nerve endings, they detect the nauseous stimuli like pain. Spindle, they are the stretch receptors present in the skeletal muscles. Spindle or fusiform shaped specialized receptor units called as interfusal fibers. Particularly, they are concentrated more in the muscle that exert fine motor control. So muscle fibers in muscle spindle contain very few or no actin and myosin filaments in their central portion, which acts as a sensory receptor. Here you can see the non-contractile portion. The end of the muscle spindle alone contracts, so both the end. So the muscle spindle, they monitor the muscle length or rate of change of the length in position of the muscle. So here you can see the fibers, 1A sensory fibers in the center in the non-contractile portion, and gamma motor fibers at the end in the periphery. Spindle, there are intrafusal and extrafusal fibers. So there are two types of intrafusal fibers. The first one is the nuclear bag. This is the nuclear bag. It has 2 to 3 fibers in each spindle. So it has the diameter of 30 micrometer and 7 millimeter in length. So microfiber nuclei, they are arranged in the central bag. So the primary end, so the primary ending afferent fiber is alone excited here. Here you can see the afferent is only group 1A fiber, that is a primary afferent. So the another type of interfusal fiber is nuclear chain fibers. Here 3 to 9 fibers are present in each spindle. So it has a diameter of 15 micrometer and 4 millimeter in length. So nuclei, here you can see the nuclei, they are arranged in chains throughout the receptor. You can see throughout the receptor it is present. So here both primary and the secondary are excited. It has two group 1A and also the group 2 fibers. Second primary and secondary afferents. In nuclear bag it has only primary afferent. Here primary and secondary afferent. Fibers, types of nerve fibers supplying the muscle spindle. Primary annulospiral endings. So it has the termination of rapidly conducting group 1A fibers. So it has a diameter of 17 micrometer. So it wraps the central portion of the nuclear bag and also the nuclear chain fibers. It is stimulated when the length of the muscle spindle receptor increases. Secondary flower spray endings. So termination of group 2 sensory fibers, 8 micrometer in diameter. So it is located near the ends, but only on the chain, nuclear chain fibers, and not on the, it is not present on the nuclear back fibers. So it resembles the Japanese orchid. And then dynamic gamma fibers and static gamma fibers. Dynamic gamma fibers, they are efferent, so it excites mainly the nuclear bag intrafusal fibers. It has plate endings. So dynamic response of the muscle spindle becomes tremendously enhanced, whereas Static response is hardly affected. So this is the dynamic gamma fiber. And then static gamma fibers. So it mainly excites the nuclear chain intrafusal fibers. So it has the trial endings. So this enhances the static response while having little influence on the dynamic response. So that is why this is called as static gamma fibers. So the static gamma fibers, it mainly excites the chain fibers, but it also excites the nuclear backfiber. Spinal cord reflexes. So these reflexes enhances the ability of the motor control system to give a coordinated confined movement. So depending upon the receptors from where they originate, these spinal cord reflexes are categorized into muscle reflexes and the cutaneous reflexes. So the muscle reflexes are stretch reflex and the Golgi tendon reflex. Cutaneous reflexes are the cutaneous reflexes. They are the withdrawal reflex. Stretch reflex. It is also known as monotactic. So which refers to the contraction of a muscle when stretched. So it is also called as the monosynaptic. So due to the muscle spindle. So whenever a skeletal muscle with intact nerve supply is stretched suddenly, that causes reflex contraction of the stretched muscle. So in short, reflex contraction of a muscle when that is stretched. It is very well developed in the anti-gravity muscles, extensors of the legs and the flexors of the arm. So they are the quickest of all the reflexes. You know why? Just because it is monosynaptic. So the reaction time is the time between the application of the stimulus and the response of the stretch reflex, which is only 19 to 24 milliseconds. So the central delay, that is the time taken for the reflex activity to transverse the spinal cord. So it is only 0.6 to 0.9 milliseconds. Neuronal circuitry of the stretch reflex. Stimulus is the stretch. So stretch is the stimulus. And the receptor stretch reflex receptor is the muscle spindle. As a sensory receptor, the muscle spindle detects the degree and the rate of the stretch. Afferent nerve fibers. So there are two types of fibers that supply the muscle spindle, that is group 1A and group 2 fibers. So the afferent nerve fibers emerging from the muscle spindle travel along the spinal nerve and that enter the spinal cord. Here it is the spinal cord. So through the dorsal root and send branches to every alpha motor neuron that goes to the muscle from which the group 1A get originated. The center It is the anterior horn cell of the cord gray matter. So where the afferent nerve ends and the synapses directly with the alpha motor neuron. So here the alpha motor neuron is a common final common pathway. So as it serves as both the integrating and the efferent pathway. So the neurotransmitter here is the glutamate, and the efferent limb, the efferent nerve fiber is the alpha motor neuron. So that forms the efferent nerve fiber which leave the spinal cord through the ventral root, and that uh, reaches the skeletal muscles and supplies the skeletal muscle fibers. Finally, the effector organ. So it is both the extensor and the flexor muscles that exhibit the stretch reflexes. Of the muscle spindle. So the static response is by both primary and the secondary nerve endings, which responds to the change in length of the receptor. So when the muscle is stretched slowly and kept on stretching, so these the signals are continuously they are sent through the primary and the secondary nerve endings, supplying the chain fibers, and that cause the reflex contraction of the muscle. So this is because the nerves from the primary ending on the nuclear chain fibers show a static response. They discharge at an increased rate throughout the period whenever a muscle is stretched. The static reflex causes muscle contraction as long as the muscle is maintained with their excessive length. So if the stimulus is longer, it can maintain the response also the longer. So here the static stretch reflex plays an important role in the control of the posture. So when a person is standing, so gravity causes continuous stretch on the anti-gravity muscle, so making them to remain in a contracted state. So as long as the gravity causes the stretch, so the stimuli is longer, maintained, slowly stretched, so the response also is maintained, so the contraction continues. Dynamic response of the muscle spindle. So when the muscle is stretched suddenly, the length of the spindle receptor also increases suddenly. So as the intrafusal fibers forming the muscle spindles are attached in parallel with the extrafusal fibers of the muscle. So sudden increase in length of the spindle receptor stimulates the primary nerve endings. So here the dynamic response is by the primary ending, which responds to the change in rate of the receptor length. So when the length of the muscle spindle receptor increases suddenly, the primary ending of the nuclear bag is stimulated powerfully. As soon as the muscle length stops increasing, the dynamic response becomes static response. So the example for that is the knee jerk and the ankle jerk. So the dynamic stretch reflex, so the function of it is the oppose, it is to oppose the sudden change in the length. But here the dynamic stretch reflex gets over within a fraction of a second. That is because the primary nerve endings supplying the nuclear bags are stimulated actively only when there is a rapid change of the length. So, so this is the dynamic stretch reflex response. Static response, they are stretched slowly. Primary, they have primary and secondary endings of the nuclear chain fibers discharge at increased rate throughout the period, oppose the force that is causing the excess length. So it makes the change in length of the stretch. Dynamic response. So it responds to a sudden stretch through the primary endings of the nuclear bag. So it transmits very strong signals to the spinal cord. So there will be reflex contraction or within the seconds. So it opposes a sudden change in the length. That is the rate of the stretch. See the role of the gamma motor neurons. So here is a pictorial representation of the muscle spindle. So you can see the intrafusal and the extrafusal fibers. So when the muscle gets stretched, so the action potential frequency increases. So when the muscle contracts, here you can see the muscle contraction. So it is getting together, right? You can see the arrow marks. So the action potential frequency decreases. So let us see the muscle spindle without the action of the without the activity of the gamma motor neuron. So here only the alpha motor neuron gets fired and the muscle contracts, but you can see less tension in the center of the intrafusal fibers and the firing rate of the afferent neuron that decreases. So there is as there is less tension, so again it will not long last. The firing rate of the afferent neuron decreases, so it fades away. Here there is co-activation of the alpha and the gamma motor neurons, and you can see the activity of the gamma motor neuron. Here you can see the alpha motor and the gamma motor neurons are stimulated. Here the muscles gets contracted. You can see both the extrafusal and the intrafusal both gets contracted. Here it is only the extrafusal and not the intrafusal. And you can see the ends of the intrafusal, they gets contracted and it is shortened. And in the center of the intrafusal muscle fibers, you can see the stretch. You can see the stretch, right? You can see the difference of both. So the firing rate of the afferent neurons that remains constant, so the activity continues. So this is the role of the gamma motor neuron. Here you can see the firing rate, and without the gamma motor neuron you can see the rate of firing. Alpha gamma coactivation. So it is the combined stimulation of the alpha and the gamma motor neurons. So let's set up a situation in which there will be an automatically an increase in tension of the muscle if the load is too heavy. So this combined stimulation of the two neuron types is called as the alpha gamma coactivation. So it maintains the spindle function when muscles gets contracted. So you can see the both the alpha and the gamma motor neuron gets fired. So the muscle contracts both the extrafusal and the intrafusal. So as the muscle fibers are contracting, you can see in the center. So there is a stretch on the center of the intrafusal fibers. So the firing rate maintains. So the firing rate of the afferent neuron remains constant. So if gamma not activated, the intrafusal will not contract, central will not stretch, so it will lose the rate of the firing of the action potential. So the firing remains constant. Alpha gamma coactivation. So the coactivation of the alpha and the gamma motor neurons that causes the shortening of both the extrafusal and the intrafusal muscle fibers. Such stimulation causes the intrafusal muscle fibers of the muscle spindle to shorten along with the extrafusal fibers. And the polar regions contract, the equatorial region, that is the central part, elongates and regains its sensitivity. So that stretches the center part. So the muscle relaxes and thus elongates. A concurrent decrease in the gamma motor neuron activity will allow the intrafusal muscle fibers to relax. This is at the end. Role of gamma loop. The central nervous system is capable of initiating movements directly by stimulating only the gamma motor neurons using the gamma loop. So the loop begins with the gamma motor neuron, which discharges the impulses to cause the interfusal muscle fiber to contract. So this causes the central part to stretch, and there will be increase in the group 1A afferent nerve fiber activity. So there will be increased gamma motor neuron discharge through a monosynaptic reflex causing the muscle contraction. So because of the co-activation, the gamma loop is activated during all movements and thus contributes to the excitability and firing rate of the alpha motor neuron also. So brain areas having facilitatory and the inhibitory effect on the stretch reflex. So it is only the facilitatory area of the reticular formation which has the facilitatory effect. So others have the inhibitory effect like inhibitory area of the reticular formation, cerebellum, basal ganglia, and the motor cortex. So brain areas for the control of gamma motor neuron. So facilitatory area of the reticular formation, So that receives facilitative fibers from motor area 4 and 6 of the cerebral cortex. So it also receives signal facilitatory fibers from the cerebello vestibulospinal tracts, and this increases the gamma motor neuron discharge. So the inhibitory reticular formation, so it acts by inhibiting the gamma motor neuron discharge. This does not discharge spontaneously. Cerebellum and the cortex, cerebral cortex, they stimulate the inhibitory reticular formation. Basal ganglia, so they inhibit the facilitatory reticular formation area or stimulate the inhibitory area in the motor cortex. Factors that increase the gamma efferent discharge, that is the anxiety, stimulation of skin by noxious agents, Genresic maneuver. So to increase the gamma motor neuron discharge, we do Genresic maneuver. Just remember this, you will be again asked in your practicals in the reflexes. So this is done by asking the individuals to make a clenching fist or the teeth, or by hooking the fingers of two hands, and then we ask them to pull against each other as hard as possible. So this increases both the alpha and the gamma motor discharge. So this increases the sensitivity of the muscle spindle. So we can elicit the reflexes easily. So at this causes the coactivation of the alpha and the gamma motor neurons. So that increases the sensitivity of the muscle spindle. So we ask to do the Genresic maneuver whenever we are not able to elicit a reflex. So we can remember this. For the upper limb, we ask to clench the teeth. For the lower limbs, we ask a person to hook the finger of two hands. Functions of the stretch reflex. So it has an important role in maintaining the muscle tone. So it also maintains the posture, and it has role in control of voluntary movements. Golgi tendon organ. So it is encapsulated sensory receptor located at the junction of the muscle with the tendon. So this is it. This is the receptor. So neurotendinous spindles. So 10 to 15 fibers connected to each Golgi tendon organ. So Golgi tendon organ regulates the muscle tension. So it monitors the force of contraction, and when negative feedback, it relaxes the contracted muscle. So it prevents the tearing of the muscle or the avulsion of the tendon. So it has both a dynamic and the static response, reacting intensely when the muscle tension is increases suddenly, so that is the dynamic response. So the lower level of steady state firing, that is almost directly proportional to the muscle tension. So this is the static response. Golgi tendon reflex is also called as disynaptic, as it has two synapses. It is also called as the inverse stretch reflex. So as it causes relaxation in response to a strong stretch. As it is opposite to the stretch reflex, this is called as inverse stretch reflex. Autogenic inhibition. So this indicates that the force generated when the muscle contracts is the stimulus for its own relaxation. The force generated when the muscle contracts is the stimulus for its own relaxation. So that is why it is called as autogenic inhibition. So the stimulus is increase in the tension in the contracting muscle. The receptor is the Golgi tendon organ. So the afferent nerve fiber is the large, rapidly conducting type 1B nerve fibers. So 1B afferents, so through the interneuron comes to the center. Here is the interneuron. The center is the synapse in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord in the spinocerebellar tracts. Here that goes into the cerebellum, and the other tracts goes to the cerebral cortex. So the efferent is the single inhibitory interneuron that inhibits the anterior motor neuron through the neurotransmitter glycine. At the same time, due to the reciprocal innervations, the antagonist muscles are excited. So, in short, when there is an excessive tension on the muscle, so which stimulates the sensory receptors in the Golgi tendon organ. So, signals from the Golgi tendon organs that gets transmitted through the sensory afferent fibers that excites the inhibitory interneuron. Here you can see the inhibitory interneuron in the spinal cord. So this inhibitory interneuron inhibits the anterior motor neuron activity. So that causes the muscle relaxation. So by this prevents the excessive tension on the tendons. Physiological role of Golgi tendon reflex. So the from the receptor from the Golgi tendon organ. So when it is fired, so the afferent reaches the spinal cord and stimulates the inhibitory interneuron. Inhibitory interneuron inhibits the alpha motor neurons. So these motor neuron gets inhibited. So the muscle relaxes. So the load in the tendon drops. So Golgi tendon reflex protects the muscles from excessive heavy loads by causing the muscles to relax and reduce the load. So it is the protective mechanism and regulation of tension during normal muscle activity force generated when the muscle contracts is a stimulus for its own relaxation. So here you can see the increased tension stimulates the sensory receptor. This is the Golgi tendon organ, and sensory nerve fiber gets excited, and here the inhibitory interneuron gets activated, and you can see the motor neuron is completely inhibited. So muscle attached to the same tendon, so this gets relaxed. So this relieves the excessive tension in the Golgi tendon organ. Whereas there is an antagonist muscle over here. So the motor neuron to the antagonist muscle gets excited, and the antagonist muscles gets contracted. So lengthening reaction. So it is the response of spastic muscle to lengthening, exaggerated form of the Golgi tendon reflex occurring due to the corticospinal tract lesion. So harm is hypertonic, so that causes passive flexion of the muscle, that increases the sensitivity of the extensors, that is the triceps, to the muscle spindle due to the stretch reflex. So this resists the flexion. There will be further flexion in the triceps, and that flexion activates the Golgi tendon reflex, and that decreases the resistance, and there will be sudden relaxation of the triceps. So the sequence of resistance of flexion followed by relaxation when a limb is moved passively. So this is the clasp knife reflex. So when an hypertonic arm is passively flexed and keep on flexing, and that will suddenly, that causes relaxation. You can see the pictorial representation of both the stretch reflex and the, here you can see the stretch reflex, and you can also see the inverse stretch reflex from the Golgi tendon organ, is afferent interneuron and acts on the muscle spindle. Here you can see the, from the interfusal muscle fibers, so directly it acts on the efferent and the muscle fibers. Flexor reflex, which is polysynaptic, and it is also called as withdrawal reflex, nociceptive reflex, or the pain reflex. So stimulus is the nauseous stimuli. So receptors or the free nerve endings, nociceptors. So here, as there are multiple synapses, it is called as polysynaptic. So the purpose is protective, to remove the affected part from the damage. So the receptors are the free nerve endings. So the A delta and the C fibers. Center is the spinal cord. There are many interneurons seen on the alpha motor neurons on ipsilateral side. Efferent nerve fiber is the alpha motor neuron. So the response is that stimulates the flexors by which it withdraws the limb. So it exhibits the irradiation and recruitment and form of many reverberating circuits. So here you can see, so whenever a person steps on a nail, so as it feels at, that makes him to feel very painful, the nociceptors are activated, so the afferent fibers are activated. You can see the center, in the center, so sensory neuron activates the interneuron in not only in the spinal cord but also in other spinal segments. So here the motor neurons are excited, so causing the flexion of the muscle to withdraw the leg. So that causes him to withdraw the leg. So it is not only in that segment but also it transmits to the other spinal segments. Crossed extensor reflex so occurs in response to the nociceptive stimuli. So the afferent end, the receptors are free nerve endings, A delta in the C fibers, centers the spinal cord. So interneurons end on alpha motor neurons on the contralateral side, not on the ipsilateral, where in the withdrawal reflex or the flexor reflex it is on the ipsilateral side. So note the difference. Efferent nerve fiber is the alpha motor neuron. Responses so that stimulates the extensors of the opposite limb to support the body after the withdrawal reflex. So this is the main role of the crossed extensor reflex. It acts on the opposite limb to give proper support. So here you can see when there is an nauseous stimuli that activates the nociceptors, the afferent nerve fiber is excited. So the sensory neuron it reaches the spinal cord. So this activates many interneurons. So these interneuron excites the motor neurons. Here you can see. So this is in the opposite limb. So the efferent fibers are activated and you can see the effector organ. So here it is. The extensor muscles are contracted and they extend the left leg. So the another leg. You can see the pain withdrawal reflex. Here you can see when there is a nauseous stimuli, so it goes to the center to the spinal cord. Here the same limb you can see. So when stimulated, so the leg that flexes to withdraw. Right here you can see the opposite limb. It is extended to support. So here the extensor muscles are activated and flexor muscles are inhibited. And here in the same um, stimulated limb, flexor are activated and extensors are inhibited. So let us discuss the pathological reflexes. to start with the Babinski reflex. So this is the normal plantar response for the plantar reflex. Here it is the extensor response of the plantar, so which is the Babinski sign. So it is normal in the infants, and in adults this indicates the upper motor neuron lesion. So Babinski sign is an abnormal sign. So this is an abnormal plantar reflex, so which causes the dorsiflexion of the toes, or the, you can see there is an extensor response, and you can see the paining of the other toes. So this reflects as there is a damage to the descending cortico spinal pathway. So it is normal in infants less than 1 year of age. It is also normal in sleeping adults. Mass reflex. So it is present in spinal cord lesion. When stimulated in the midline, there occurs the evacuation of the bowel and the bladder, and flexion of the lower limb, and also sweating of the skin below the level of the spinal cord lesion. Clonus, so it is the oscillation of the muscle jerks. So rapid jerky movements due to involuntary contraction of muscle to sudden, rapid and constant stretch. Due to the operation of the stretch reflex and the inverse stretch reflex. So this is due to the increase in the gamma motor neuron discharge. So this is also a pathological reflex. So example is the ankle clonus and the patellar clonus. We'll discuss it in the practical class. So clonus is a stretch reflex oscillation. Here you can see the ankle clonus, and then pendular movement. So this is seen in the cerebellar dysfunction. So tendon jerk, which causes a oscillatory movement, and there will be hypotonia and lack of restrictive effect. So books to read: A.K. Jain, Hindu Purana, Guyton and Hall, Genong, and G.K. Pal. Thank you for your patient listening.